Well, that is one of our most favorite places to complete the Blanco hat trick.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk very quickly about that here with Davin Topel of Real Spirits Distilling. But my name is Spencer Whelan.
And I'm Sarah Whelan.
And we are doing the Taste the Trail, 19 nights through the Texas Whiskey Trail, all alphabetically. And tonight we are focusing on Real Spirits Distilling. And Real Spirits, if you're not familiar with it, is the distilling arm of Real Ale Brewing Company. And Real Ale, a lot of Texans already know about. They know about Fireman's 4. They know about Axis IPA, Real Heavy, Devil's Backbone. A lot of these beer styles that people are very familiar with. Well, little do they know that it turns into amazing whiskey. Yeah. When put into the right hands.
I actually told some neighbors tonight, they were asking who was on, and I was saying Real Spirits, and they're like, what? And I was like, Real Ale. And they're like, oh, they're distilling? I'm like, oh, yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So they're excited. So I don't know if they're watching.
Yeah.
Hi, guys, if you are.
So everybody join into the comments. Get your questions ready for Davin. We'll be chatting with him for a second. But again, why we are doing this is because everybody's at home and everybody is forced to shelter in place for an extended period of time. So we're taking this opportunity to go through the entire Texas Whiskey Trail. But in addition to that, we're doing a lot of stuff during the workday, which is to help the distilleries that need to make hand sanitizer for the general public and for first responders and everybody else. And I can tell you, it's amazing how many of our distilleries are actually doing this. Like they're really, really putting in the effort. So we have started a Still Strong TX campaign. So if you ever see or pick up a distillery sanitizer at any of our distilleries across the trail, post about it and use the hashtag Still Strong TX to talk about that or to push that out into the social world. But also feel free to go to our website at texaswhiskeytrailstore.com. And you will be able to buy that T-shirt that you see right there. And the proceeds will help the Texas Whiskey Association continue our efforts around the sanitizer production efforts, informing all of our distilleries about basically everything that's going on in those changing rules and regulations and all the emergency advisements that we have to deal with on a daily basis. So please consider going to texaswhiskeytrailstore.com and buy one of those shirts. They're kind of sweet. In fact, I am even wearing one right now. There it is.
Nice.
So you get to have be really cool like me. No, nothing. Crickets?
We should bring Davin on.
Oh, wow. That's brutal.
Well, the other nights you said we were just kind of married. So,
I did not expect it to go this way.
You had it coming.
I'm just gonna go. You guys can chat.
Oh, sit back down.
We have a wonderful relationship.
Yeah, that's all right.
Hi, Davin. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Oh no, we're getting bad audio on you here. Hold on a second. Okay, Davin, can you hear us?
There we are. Yep.
Okay, hold on. We're still getting bad audio on your side. Let me take you out of the stream for a second and put you back in.
Okay.
Oh,
this is fun.
It's our first real technical challenge.
This is where we learn if we can vamp. That's what they call it, right? In the biz.
And can you vamp?
Can I talk? Y'all are silly.
Let's see.
Well, you know what I did today?
What'd you do?
I got so tired of bottles just being all around the house that I finally corralled them all together and put them back in the dining room. And I knew we had a lot already, but now I put some away and I'm looking at this massive amount of whiskey. So we need everything to open back up so we can take it back to the office.
All right, let's try this again. Davin, how are you, man? Davin, do you hear us, bud? Oh no.
We're not muted, are we?
I'm pretty sure we're not. Can you see us? Hi. Oh no.
Oh, this is so sad.
I'll let you text with him for a second.
Okay, I will text him and tell him to log out and log back in.
Yeah, tell him to log out and log back in.
Y'all, this is just real life. We're all living in. And now I can.
Hey, folks.
We're really killing it
This
tonight.
is so.
Oh goodness,
this is
y'all.
great.
It's all COVID's fault. You know that, right?
Yeah. See. Look at John. He's like, yeah, cool. Bring Davin on. Yeah, we feel the same way, John.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna try this one more time.
Okay. Try one more time.
Davin, we're gonna try again. Are you there?
I'm there.
Yes, we nailed it.
Yay!
All right.
Okay.
You guys are professionals.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
I like
That
John.
is, there's no sarcasm in that, by the way, whatsoever. You guys know exactly what you're doing. That's all on me.
Yeah. Well, our moms have decided that I should get a career in broadcasting. I'm like, no, thank you. This is a lot of work.
But John says jiggle the cord, so it worked, John. We did exactly that.
I use a hammer on my end.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
Anyway, so thank you for joining us. It's very good to see you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, you're like kind of like right over there. You're just kind of like
Yeah.
once the crow flies, you're not far away from
It's like
us.
10 minutes from us.
But
yeah.
we
Yeah.
are.
Our kids may, oh no, wait. We're not, I think our kids are not going to the same elementary school.
No.
Not yeah, we're over. I'm over in Bee Cave, closer to Spicewood. I think
Yeah.
we're going to LT or what? You know what? That's a question for my wife as to where my kids are in school.
You probably
Probably
also
don't want to share that with the
you don't want to
internet.
broadcast where they're actually going to go to elementary school.
Good point.
But anyway, so yeah, you're close, but we're still socially distancing.
Yeah.
But as we said, you are the head distiller of Real Spirits Distilling, and that is the distilling arm of Real Ale Brewing Company. So why don't you talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about how you got into that position and where you came from prior to that?
Yeah. So my background is my distilling background came back from I was living in Park City, Utah for 12 years. I did a little bit of everything over there, from making snow to ski patrol, a little bit of firefighting, but bartending the entire time. Eventually, I started talking to my father, who started making beer at home, and we got into a conversation about making whiskey and how hard that might be.
Yeah.
And that's where my rabbit hole started. I started digging into, and I never did come out of it. Living in Park City, Utah, there was a distillery there called High West, and I started working for them, started distilling for them. And my wife and I became pregnant and decided to move closer to home. My original home is in Minnesota. Hers is in Texas. I think we were just over being that cold. Yep. And so we moved to Texas. Took me about 2 years to get back in the industry, and found the right, really took time to find the right distillery to work for. And when I found Real Spirits, it was one of those places that was, it had all this same, distillation moral I needed. Their beer is unfiltered, it's unpasteurized for full flavor. It's not made to be, shelf super stable, even though it lasts a very long time with those factors, but it's meant for flavor and quality versus quantity. Right. And so when I found Real Ale, it really kind of spoke to me. And so they wanted to make a spirit in that same style, full flavor. And so that's what I'm allowed to do over there. We use an alembic still. We distill our whiskey twice. We distill our gin 3 times. And what we're doing with these gins and whiskeys is we're actually making them from Real Ale's beer styles. Yeah. Those beer styles, they speak to everybody. They've been around Texas for, the last 24 years. Real Ale's celebrating its 24th anniversary this month. We are postponing our anniversary to June this year. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm actually taking, for our whiskey, our main whiskey, our signature whiskey, I'm taking 2 of our main beer styles and turning them into whiskey by the brewers taking the beer and making it the way they normally would, minus the hops. Those 2 beers are the Devil's Backbone and the Real Heavy Scotch Ale. So the Devil's Backbone makes a unique whiskey in the sense that it's made with a Belgian yeast strain, which adds clove and banana to that specific whiskey style. Yeah. And the Real Heavy Scotch Ale has this 7 different malts, one of them being a peated malt, and all those malts create such complexities in that whiskey. And so the brewers, again, make the whiskey the way they normally would, minus the hops. They're both brewed, fermented, distilled, and aged separately. And then at the end of the maturation period, I'm mingling them together in a ratio that complements each other's flavor. And that is how we get our signature whiskey. And so the idea behind taking two different whiskeys and mingling them together, I really wanted to add the element of blending into our program, or mingling, as I call it, because blending typically means you're taking whiskeys from other distilleries and putting them together, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with. But what we're doing is we're taking two different whiskeys and we're mingling them together to make one cohesive product. And that is the signature whiskey. It's a hard thing to do just because it's finding these right balances and everything. But then on top of finding the balance, you actually have to replicate that over and over again. Which, in craft, it's difficult. It's all done by a sense of smell, sense of taste. And that's all
pretty much you, right?
Yeah. Me and, it's me and Brad, the owner, and Elazar, who has Elazar came to us this last a year ago from Balcones. We were looking to take on another distiller, and rather than hiring somebody, an apprentice, we wanted to hire somebody with the same passion and skill set that we already have, because we just feel like you can't grow if you don't have somebody saying, I'm not into this, and you need to have that kind of you need to have that skill set in order to make something that everybody's going to like. And so Elazar has been a great addition to our team, and so between the three of us, it's a long, daunting.
Oh, geez.
It's a wonderful task.
I almost dropped it, but I caught it.
We should start drinking.
No, we shouldn't start. Hold on, I just want to say, Georgetown Whiskey Collaborative have been in a lot of our streams saying thank you for organizing these chats. I appreciate that, guys. But he also says that we're having some double barrel, so they're a big fan. And we will be tasting that in just a second.
Yeah.
But one thing that you said that I think is really important and critical is last night we talked with Ranger Creek, which was the first brewery distillery combo in Texas. And they do a lot of stuff on the grain. We spent a lot of time talking about how they distill on the grain. And you guys are using a different method. You're distilling off grain because you're getting that wash from your brew side. And then, for them, they said, like, personally, them yeast isn't a big factor, but for you, it is a very big factor. So it's just interesting to see, 50 to 80 miles away, or maybe less than that. I'm not sure. You guys have very, very similar operations with a brewery and a distillery, very different styles, very different whiskeys.
Yeah, I mean, yeast to us, it is a big deal. I was very fortunate working over at High West to work under another distiller that, he was a brewer before being a distiller. He understood what yeast does to make different beer styles present different flavors, and it does come through in your brew, in my opinion. And yeast to us is very important. The fermentation is very important. We don't distill bad beer because it's bad beer. If it's bad beer, you're going to get a bad whiskey. And so what we do is we pay very close attention to our fermentation and our distillation, because those final flavors, they may not come across as a large proportion of the flavor, but there's certain nuances that will be read a little off. And so we like to play around with these different yeast styles. There's a lot of them out there. And so I'll take the same whiskey and I'll actually utilize a different yeast. And, you know, we'll compare differences before the aging process, and just see how much flavor differentiates between these different yeast styles and the same mash bills. And so these yeast styles do promote different flavors for different whiskeys and different blending components. And that's the important thing is balancing all of these flavors together. So yeah.
Well, you already have some spirit geek questions in the comments here. Is it a gin or really a Genever?
Good question, Jeremy. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it is technically a Genever. It is made from whiskey. We distill it 3 times, which is in an alembic still, and it is not to a grain neutral spirit. This is made as a base of white whiskey. Yeah. On the 3rd distillation, the botanicals are added, and technically it is a Genever. Not many people know what a Genever is.
Yeah, I know. You could explain that. That would be awesome.
It's basically Genever is the parents of what gin is before the technology was there to make a grain neutral spirit or a vodka. That our distillation practice was the first, and that is through a pot belly still. And so the only way to make vodka or grain neutral spirits is to distill it to a point of 94.9% ABV. And you need to have about 19 distillations to get it up to that point, which means that you need to have your pot and 18 windows of distillations in your column still. Okay. Column still can produce grain neutral spirits.
Gotcha.
They can get it up to that point.
Yeah.
Whereas we are unable to do it. We can get it up to a certain point, but what that's doing is it's actually adding another flavor to that gin, and it's another flavor factor. And so technically, yes, it is a Genever, but because of the amount of juniper that we use in our botanical list, we can classify it as a gin.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a good transition to talk about this because people who produce spirits, right? They're not all whiskey producers, and they will play with rum, they play with gin. You have an amazing bottle right here that I think is behind you as well.
So good.
Called Totem.
Which I'm going to start sipping on that.
When we're talking about neutral spirits, I know too much about neutral spirits now because of the sanitizer issue. But for those of you that don't know, they call it a neutral spirit because that is neutral. You take out all of the flavor of the original grain or whatever the starch or whatever the base was that was going to be used to distill. You're taking the flavor out and you're basically ending up with ethanol and water, right? And that's what vodka is at its base level, is it's ethanol and water, right? Yeah. But when you're not going to that high proof, you are getting more of the grain flavor. And you kind of started with that base here and then built something on top of it, which is why I love the name Totem, because you got layers of things on top of it. But tell everybody what Totem is.
Yeah, so Totem is it's a totally different beast, for lack of a better word. But it is built on my affinity for mezcal and pachuga. And pachuga is a mezcal that's made in Oaxaca. It is made from mezcal, but what makes pachuga different is that it's basically a gin made from a base of mezcal or agave or maguey. And what I do over here is I adopted the distillation practice of pachuga, which is adding nuts, fruit, botanicals, herbs, and spices to the still, but the main ingredient is in Pechuga is a protein, and that protein is normally a chicken breast or a turkey breast, or just meat in general. There is protein in that final distillation. And so what I did was I foraged nuts, fruits, berries from around the actual distillery, and grapefruit, orange, and rosemary, things from around Texas. And then I went hunting for a hog. I went with Jesse Griffiths from Daidu here in Austin, and he harvested a hog. We then shaved the ham off of that hog, which is the back quarter of the pig, and I then cold smoked it with mesquite, oak, and pecan wood, and put that cold smoked, basically raw piece of meat in the still, which is traditionally done above the actual boiling distillate inside the pot. And so all of those botanicals are in the pot boiling around. The meat is being cooked through steam.
Yep.
And as that meat is being cooked, it's dropping meat juices into the boil kettle. And those meat juices and oils and everything intermingle with all of these other flavors, are then vaporized, kind of pushed over into the final spirit. And while it's not adding a whole lot of character of meat or the meat or of the pig, what it does carry is it's a neat process that it distills the flavor, pushes over the umami flavors and the fattiness, the oils. And so it creates a mouthfeel. It creates a texture and fullness in that spirit. And when you drink it, you almost feel the energy in that spirit.
I agree. Yeah.
Pechugas are typically drank for special occasions and things like that. It's just kind of a neat spiritualistic drink. It's not meant to get, as whiskey, it shouldn't be meant to get messed up on. It's more meant to kind of evoke different things. And so that's what I've tried to do with this spirit, is try to make a ritualistic drink. And so I did create a ritual behind it. It is meant for anybody who's into the outdoors, which is very popular right now with everybody. But the ritual is that if you're going to go on an adventure, a hunting, a camping, river rafting, bicycling trip, anywhere in the world, is that you are going to pour a glass into a small cup, and you're going to get a local honey from wherever you're going to. So if you're going on a whitewater rafting trip in Utah, you're going to get a local honey from that area. You're going to rim the glass with that honey. You're going to pour the drink. You're actually going to light the drink on fire.
Whoa.
And by lighting it on fire, it's actually it awakens the spirit. It's letting it know that you're there. The way I kind of simulate it too is holding your hand up to an animal and letting them smell you before it tames the sharp bite. It is a 55% ABV spirit.
Yeah.
And the chemistry behind it is when you light something like that on fire, it actually does tame down that sharp bite. But so you're taming that spirit. You're going to put the flame out, lick the honey, drink it back, and that honey is actually going to bind you to that area and that spirit to yourself. And so it's more of a tool, in the outdoors industry and anything to do.
What would the ritual be for, say, someone who likes to sleep in a nice hotel room? Maybe visit the spa.
Yeah. and doesn't want to go outside ever.
Right? Because like what you're describing is a little like Bear Grylls. You're like the Bear Grylls of whiskey. Oh, he totally.
Ooh.
Oh, you totally are.
I think you're more like Survivor Man, like Les Stroud.
Well, I don't know.
I know that's proud. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that show was
guy's
so good.
Man, that guy was a badass,
That
wasn't he?
show.
I mean, that it's kind of worth saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we joke about this every time, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, Davin, like, you always have 2 or 3 jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're always doing 2 or 3 things, but you run an outdoors basically outfitter, right? For fishing, hunting. You've done that your whole life, fishing and hunting, that is. But like, you also kind of run people on. You have Whiskey River Chronicle. Why don't you tell people just briefly about that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing Whiskey River Chronicle, which is just a simple blog that I do on whiskey, fly fishing, outdoors life, and music is kind of my thing too, but as well as everybody's. But
I work music.
Yeah, I work with an outfitter called Spoke Hollow Outfitters out in Wimberley, and we do quail hunts, we do fly fishing, we do white-tailed deer hunts, we do turkey hunts, we do all sorts of different things, and it's been an amazing, it's one of those things that I've always been really good at manifesting things, and just taking my outdoors experience and wanting to distill and do outdoors. I've found some really great people to help me, push this out there. And Real Ale Brewing and Real Spirits Distilling has been one of them. On the other side, Spoke Hollow Outfitters has been a great outlet, and it's just breaking the monotony of everyday life, and it's really not. I mean, it's really not that hard, but it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. There's really a lot.
Well, you're a busy man.
Well, our son actually asked if he could go fishing today. He was asking if any of the stores still had fit. And you want to know where he wants to go fishing?
Well, we're not far away from each other. We can stay 6 feet, and I can put him down by the target.
He asked to go to the Hill Country Galleria pond next to the Salt Lick.
Yeah.
Where we fed ducks before. I'm like, I don't think we want fish from there.
Yeah.
We'll take you on there. So you two
Saltgrass,
could take the
not
boys.
Salt Lick.
Oh yeah,
Saltgrass. Yeah. And
Either
there are fish there, and that's the thing is I take my 5-year-old over there all the time, and
okay, so there's the thing. See how much I do not know.
Thing. You're not going to eat them. Yeah, you're right. You're definitely right. Don't eat them.
Yeah.
Don't eat them. Well, look, you do have some totem fans in there.
Yeah.
Jeremy's saying the totem's legit. Spencer Mav on YouTube says, "How bizarre! Now I want to try it."
It's so good, Spencer.
Yeah, so he's saying he's a fan of mezcal. It's the first time he's heard of Pachuga. So, and I didn't mean to. I said it wrong when I was describing it. It's not a gin base. You are building a different spirit altogether. And I think like the thing I love telling about that is because it kind of encapsulates all the things that you do: distilling, hunting, gathering, all the things are kind of in that bottle.
Now he just needs a fish in there.
But now we need to talk about whiskey.
Yeah.
We are, if you see, I guess, over there, the Whiskey Trail logo.
Yeah.
We are the Whiskey Trail, so we need to talk about whiskey. And with all due respect to Totem, I'm a huge fan of your whiskeys, and they're really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about them. What we have here is we have a blind trio in front of Sarah, and we have 3 whiskeys. We have a single barrel expression. We have your double barrel that we released in February, which seems like 3 years ago now, doesn't it?
I know.
And then we have your new straight malt, rye grain straight malt whiskey. And those are all amazing, amazing expressions in and of themselves.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell her, I'm guessing one of those 3 is going to be extremely easy for her to identify right off the bat. And I'm guessing it's going to be the Rumble Barrel. Because the double barrel expression, this one right here, and I'll show it to the camera, but this one right here was released in February on Valentine's Day, and we were there for that release. And it is, well, I'll let you describe it. What is it?
Well, what it is it's actually another one of our grain whiskeys that was made as a base malt of malted barley, but it does have 15% flaked corn in there. It was aged for 2 years, and I believe, well, let me take a look at a bottle. It was off the top of my head, I'm not going to think of it.
29 months.
29 months. So that means that it was 4 of those months were in a Balcones barrel. I do know that. And so 1 year and 1 month in a new charred white oak barrel, and then 4 months in a Balcones rumble barrel. And this is totally different from anything that we've done as another whiskey that we'll get into. This has flavors of, it actually has some strawberry, some fresh strawberry in there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously those vanillas and those caramels, but they kind of soak into that brown sugar, that turbinado sugar, and those honey textures. But what I really like about this one is that it kind of lends into kind of an almond flavor. There's that almond cake, almond cookie, along with all of these different neat dried fruits that are coming through on that whiskey. And it's one of my favorites. I'm sorry. I'm just
That's fine. And we have Shannon
to say it's one of my favorites.
We were just thinking about this because Shannon included those Marriage of Figaro little mini cupcakes with this as the base ingredient for her. Her. And you had them, Davin.
Keto what?
What did you think about those?
No, they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. And thank you, Sharon, for making those. Because it was a dead-on pairing for that. I think she used some almond extract in there, and it was topped off with I think like a strawberry puree or something like it. It was just perfect.
She does some like fig filling or something, or like a fig.
Yeah, fig jam.
Yeah. So man, I'm telling you, Shannon, you nailed that. So really well done. We're gonna have to do more of those in the future.
Absolutely.
So can you pick it out of that lineup of 3?
I think it's
based on kind of those fig, almond cookie kind of characters.
I think it's this one.
Ding ding.
Sarah got it right.
She likes to do the Sarah.
Yes. It makes the children very happy.
Yeah. It makes our daughter really, really embarrassed whenever Sarah does this dance. So
it's like, oh, kid, you just hold on to your hat. Like, just wait for what I got in store for you.
Yeah. So Shannon says it's almond cake and fig.
Not the old snap.
That's right. Oh, I had a friend who, for her daughter's first middle school dance, she had a cookie cake made, and in rice icing they put make good choices. She shared that to her and her friends. I'm like,
That's perfect.
Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we digress significantly.
So
this is so good.
Yeah, so this was our Valentine's Day event for the trail. And it couldn't have been more perfect. It was just exactly what we wanted to do on that day. Yeah. Exactly the flavor profile for a Valentine's Day event. Mm-hmm. Got some good members out there. It was nice and cold and crisp and sunny, beautiful day. And why don't you tell people where you are in Blanco? Because we've talked about the Blanco hat trick a few different times. And there's 3 distilleries: Andalusia, Milam and Green, and you guys. Where are you guys located in Blanco?
We're on the north side of Blanco, right as you enter in on 281. We're at 231 San Saba Court, Blanco, Texas 76006.
Google it.
But we're literally right across the street from Ben Milam. We are part of the Blanco hat trick, which is a wonderful thing. People might think that having another distillery across from you, up the road from you, might be, a bad thing. But honestly, all of us, we're all doing it the right way. We're all doing it in a beautiful way. We're all doing it in our own way. And that's what It's a great thing when you have distilleries that are doing their own thing, because you can visit each one of them and have something that's new. And so it only adds to the appeal of coming out to Blanco. Obviously, we have the one thing that we do have that the other distilleries don't have is that we have beer. So we have a full tap room. We have cocktails. We have beer. We have new beers coming out almost every week, it seems. We do collaborations with different restaurants and bars throughout Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. I mean, really any bars that are interested in doing some collaboration beers, we can do those with them on our pilot beer system. And so we are coming out with great beer, new beer, all the time. And so to have that, it's kind of your all-in-one stop shop.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Blanco hat trick. Oh, I'm feeling good.
We're only on the first drink.
Well, no, because I was sipping the totem.
She didn't light it.
Sure. Blame it on the totem.
No,
totem made me do it.
Yeah. No, the Blanco hat trick is also a great kind of bang for your buck as far as for the trailblazers. Like,
for sure.
Like you can hitting 3 distilleries in a day. Like, make sure you have a DD or something, because it's probably out there unless you actually live in Blanco. But it's a great experience, and they are so different, and you'll get something different from each place. And
well, what I love about it is like you said, Davin, you all have 3 different operations, right? You got Andalusia up the road that is doing single malt expressions. Like they're focusing on single malt, and they're doing an amazing job. They're doing smoked single malts, lots of different things. They're focusing on barley based single malt production. Then and they have an amazing kind of quaint library style feel with like this kind of barn dominium, amazing, beautiful interior, and it's just beautiful. Then you go down the street and you have Milam and Green, and they're doing sourced expressions plus their own stuff, and very focused on blending and putting batches together in different blends. And then you go across the street and you have a major, huge brewery operation where you can see all of those different beer styles, see a massive beer production operation in practice, and then have a micro distillery doing really interesting. And you have so many varieties. And I guess that's part of that's because of all the different beer varieties that you get to play with. But every place is completely different, and every place has its own unique style, and they do not taste like each other at all.
Yeah.
Like they're very different, and they're all amazing in their own way.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
So what do you think we should go to next? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Davin.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, hit it up.
No, you please.
No, I was just going to say that's what's beautiful. Just Texas in general is just. I mean, we are our own country here. We have so many different flavors, and in such a small town of Blanco, you get to experience 3 different, completely different expressions. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and Trey says it perfectly. He says 3 good distilleries all have their own unique flavors. Couldn't agree more, Trey. That's exactly right.
So I totes already know what the other 2 are.
Oh, really?
And,
And
the reason I think I know this.
Do I get to take points off of her Trailblazer account for saying totes?
No, everyone on the stream is so jazzed to hear me talk so cool.
Oh gosh, you're gonna embarrass our employees and our children.
I have complete confidence in you, Sarah.
Thank you, Davin. No. So I think so. This is the rye, and this is the single barrel.
Why do you say that?
Because this doesn't taste or this doesn't smell like anything I feel like I've smelled before from Davin.
Okay, what does it smell like?
Rye.
Good answer.
Sorry. I'm really proud of myself.
Like I said, I should just go because why not? You guys, you got this thing now.
So no, it smells like actually this last smell.
First of all, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. So my first smell off of it was just that. Like I'm so familiar with your stuff. I mentioned it today on my Instagram and Facebook page. Like Real Spirits was the whiskey that got me into whiskey.
Yep.
And it was just there was something about it. Everyone has their whiskeys that they're drawn to, that like hits their palate, and this did it for me. And I know I'm not alone. And a lot of women seem to really like it as well. And it's a lot of people who are kind of like, I'm not really sure what to try. I'm kind of nervous. Like a lot of times I'll pour them a real spirits because I feel like that's something that they'll really enjoy. It's a great kind of bridge, so to speak. And then you get into it and then you really love it. So I think I'm super familiar with the flavor profiles that you've done, but the rye is just, it smells completely different. And I knew it was the rye right away.
Yeah.
Didn't really.
Right away.
Hopefully mom and dad are not watching. And then, no, but like a couple minutes ago, it smelled like a humid day on Nanny's farm, like a really humid day, like at dusk when like you go into one of the barns and there's hay in there or grain. And that's what it smells like to me.
That's a very, very well done note. I completely understand what you're talking about.
Took me just like straight back there.
Yeah. And by the way, I have to show this
really good.
because one, his name is Spencer, and two, he obviously likes puns like I do. I missed it. But he says, yes, we're totemly jazzed.
See, the people agree with me. I'm not the only one who uses the word jazz.
Apparently, Spencer does as well. So John says, ooh, ooh, but well done. Yes.
I'm telling you, it's making
man, it's turning into a pun night. I love it, guys.
Right. Hey.
Wait a second.
Oh man. But no, look, that is a perfect like description. Now I do love as we go through this how all of your whiskey note memories are going back to your grandmother's farm.
Well, that's
in different ways, different times.
I mean,
sometimes it was your grandfather's your grandfather's area. Go ahead. Oh,
that's exactly. I mean, that's what whiskey should be.
Oh no.
Should train. Are we still there?
Oh, are you there?
Well, I'll talk.
You talk.
No, but we've already established that I'm not a super outdoorsy girl.
No. So the few times you've been outdoors were at your grandmother's farm?
No. I'm just saying most of my experience with land. No. So bad, I need to stop. No, but like being the fields, and that's where I spent so much time. We were there every summer, every Christmas, which is a completely different experience.
And look, I mean, if you're going to get notes from nature, that is a pretty good farm to do it because you do have, like, you had your own water source. You had cattle on it. You had different types of hay feed. You had different types of crops that were being grown there at times.
They grew tobacco for a while, for a long time when I was a kid. So like walking in, I get that sometimes, like walking into the barn where they would dry the tobacco.
Yes.
That scent kind of comes through sometimes.
Well,
too.
let's see if Davin, can you hear us again?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. We got you back.
Good.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to see if you got this as well, but this is my first time ever trying the rye is tonight.
Ooh.
And for me, I also get a farm memory, but for me, Davin, it's, my grandfather grew corn up in the panhandle of Texas for a long time, amongst a whole bunch of other things, sugar beets, lot of, cotton for a little while. But the corn I always remember because we would always go and just rip off an ear and shuck it right there. And it's the smell of the husk and kind of the corn silk of like fresh green, non-wilted. It's the green husk as you rip off of a.
Oh, I can see that.
Kind of that. Yeah. Especially if you break it all the way off at the base and you kind of get that oily bit of aroma. Like it's definitely got that. And there's no corn in this at all, right?
No.
This is all just rye or malted. This is a straight malt whiskey actually with a rye as a percentage, right?
Right, that's right. So it's 85% malted barley, which is 2-row, what we use, and 15% malted rye. And that malted rye adds these, obviously, it adds this kind of green grass and, slight corn characteristic, but, You're going to get some spices on it. And I mean, what rye does is it evokes those flavors of grass and that green flavor. And it's not green from like the wood of the barrel or anything like that. It's more of memory, or it transcends you to those, fresh cut, basically the fresh cut grass, or fields, and things like that. And so,
and I think a lot of people really don't understand, like, or probably don't, they probably know it, but basically every grain is a type of grass in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all, I mean, they've been mutated over centuries or millennia to what we know of them today as the grains, but they're all grasses in some way. But some things you identify as a grass kind of note more than others. And the rye malt, I think, is super interesting, because is this all malted rye, or is there some unmalted rye in there as well?
No, this is all malted rye. This is these are two different grains. It's malted barley, which was 2-row, and a malted rye. That is it. This was actually made from our 20th anniversary rye IPA. Yeah. Again, most of our beers or most of our whiskeys are made from beer. And so this was made from our 20th anniversary rye IPA. And it just envelops, just that small amount of rye just takes over the entire whiskey. You guys, Sarah, you're going to try a couple of other whiskeys, and they're going to be completely different from what this is. The other main factor of this whiskey itself is the proof on it. We've only released a few whiskeys at cask strength or at 50% ABV. This is actually one of our whiskeys that is released at 50% ABV. Okay. And not many people would, know that by, by sense of taste. Or, it's not, it is definitely not personified as being 50% ABV. It has to do with that we don't distill on the grain. The more you boil something, tea or, grains or things like that, you're going to build up some astringencies, some oils and things like that that are going to come across. And if you do like we do, which is distill off the grain, you're leaving behind all of those astringencies. We actually don't even, beer is typically brought up to boil for 60 minutes. We don't even bring our distillate, we bring it just below boiling point. Okay. And we hold it just below boiling point for a period of long enough to make sure that the lines are sterile all the way through. But this definitely impacts the final flavor of our whiskey, and the final astringency of our whiskey. And we drink it a little bit softer, on much softer notes because of it. Yeah. Well, Trey says he sounds fantastic. He needs to get down there and try some. Trey, yes, you do. Like I said, I purposely didn't crack open the bottle until tonight because I wanted to get my first impressions on it. And it absolutely is earthy. Just, I mean, it feels like what you would want and I'm amazed by it. It feels like what you would want out of a rye, but it's not technically a rye. It's technically a malt whiskey, but that rye malt is so significant in the expression overall that you totally get. And I think it's a testament. You totally understood immediately that that's a rye. Yeah. Yeah. And she loves rye.
Oh, lately. But I've been like, he'll blind test me to smell between a bourbon and a rye, and I think I've gotten it wrong more times than not. Especially compared to a bourbon. Many of us have. Yeah. I mean, thank you, Davin.
Yeah, when 90% of the barrel, or when 90% of the flavor characteristic is coming from barrel, it's pretty easy to get wrong. And we use new charred white oak barrels on all of our whiskeys as of right now. Yeah, and it does it it's hard to differentiate all of these different flavors. Again, we think that yeast plays a huge integral role. It's, you know, but you have to train yourself into knowing these, finding these different flavors, and yeast only contributes about, 15%. It's a very small amount, and that barrel taking over everything, it's very hard, and you're doing a great job.
Well,
thank you. I'm just
Davin,
gonna start blaming the barrel.
No,
when
sure.
from now on, when I get it wrong, I'm just like, it's just the barrel's fault.
Davin, you're making life hard for me after this, because she's just gonna be like, well, Davin said I'm fine. Davin said I'm right.
Need I say more?
So let's move on to Greg Hagee's comment, because he says he loves barrels 17. I think he meant 71.
71, yeah.
And so does Jeremy. He says he's enjoying barrel 71.
Isn't that what we've got?
And we have barrel 71.
La, la, la.
And to prove it, I will show the camera that we.
I don't know anyone can see it.
Barrel
there we
71.
go. Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah.
This we got last summer, I believe. And this was your first single barrel expression, correct?
No, we've done some single barrel expressions since our release in 2017, but this one was a totally different beast.
Okay.
We had 4 barrels, I believe, out of this particular distillation, and this barrel was totally different. It was from its sister barrels, it was completely different. That's why I kind of chose this one, because it had flavors and characteristics that I had not had in any of our other whiskeys, whether it be because of where it was in our rick house, or that's basically all I can attribute it to, is where it was in the rick house, because everything was the same as the 3 other barrels, and 71 was just a rebel. And I had to bottle it by itself. There's no way I was going to mingle this with anything else.
Yeah. Was this a Devil's Backbone base, or?
71 was a real heavy base.
Real heavy. Okay. I was about to say.
Yeah.
So how often do you go in and taste the barrels?
I'm going in and tasting the barrels. I mean, again, we're in our infancy when it comes to Texas whiskeys. I'm going in and tasting our barrels probably once a month, if not once every other week. As the summer starts to kind of kick in and heat starts to make a difference, I'm definitely in there probably once a week. But that's around July through September, and then I'm going to start to kind of leave them alone a little bit more through November.
Okay.
And just let them do their things, but it really depends on the season. But I'm in there, at least once a month, just checking everything out.
So how many are you tasting in like one sitting? Not sitting, but you know what I mean.
Standing.
Yeah.
Walking.
So I'm typically tasting about 4 to 6 barrels.
Okay.
What we're producing over at Real Spirits is between 4 and 6 barrels a month. And so I really want to kind of focus in on those ones that are coming up to age.
Yeah.
Depending on when they were put into wood, we're going to need to look at them a little bit closer. Yeah. And that's the real thing. And then when I'm going to be putting blends together, I'm going to be looking at things a lot closer. I need to start pulling samples, which is what I'm actually going to start doing here at the house this week, and working through the weekend. It's a terrible job.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I've got I think I have 19 different barrels that I have to go through this weekend. And throughout the course of going through them, I need to figure out which ones I'm going to blend together. The barrels that I'm looking at right now are actually part of our new our new expression that will be coming out next year. And it is our grain whiskey expression. It's going to have a little bit of, I've been making 3 different grain whiskeys, one from wheat. So it has 15% wheat. I've got one with rye, which you guys are tasting today. And then I have one that has a little bit of flaked corn, which is in the double barrel with the Balcones barrel.
Okay.
And so that's, yes. And so if you have that double barrel number 5, that's actually kind of a prelude to what's coming up. But the idea is that I wanted to take these 3 different grain whiskeys that we've created and put them together in a ratio that complement each other, but basically using all of the same grains that make up a bourbon.
Yeah.
But reverse it. So you have a higher mash bill of malted barley, but there is wheat, there is corn, and there is rye. And so it's a variation of I guess it's a reverse bourbon is what I'm kind of calling it.
Okay.
But
That's kind of cool.
yeah. So,
Do you think it would, on flavor profile, it is similar to the Boo Rye that High West did, or?
Well, so the Boo Rye, the Boo Rye was a combination of bourbon and rye.
Right.
That bourbon already had, 51% corn on there, but it's going to be something a little different, just because it's such a light side of that corn. We're only adding 15% of this, corn in that overall, but the amount of juice that I'm coming from that corn. So I have 4 different. I have 4 grain whiskeys made with corn. I have 4 grain whiskeys made with wheat. I have 4 grain whiskeys made with rye. They're going to be put together in a ratio that complement each other, as opposed to being a bourbon rye.
Right.
And so it's ideally going to be all of these flavors are going to mingle together really well, but
the chemistry is just going to be different. It's just going to be completely different.
It's going to be different. Yeah. And it's going to be mainly malted barley.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if this weekend you find that you need my professional opinion, you can just make some sample bottles and leave them on your porch, and I'll come grab them.
I'll drop them on the door.
Very helpful in your R&D, I'm sure.
Well, you say something there that I think is important as we wrap up here. And if any of you have your last questions, at the end of the hour here, please put them in the comments. But one of the reasons that when we formed the association, and you were a founding member. Early on. So thank you for being a part of that. But when we formed the association, we wanted to make sure it was the Texas Whiskey Association, not just, a bourbon thing. A lot of people, in the general populace don't know the difference between whiskey and bourbon. Don't know that bourbon is actually a subset of the larger category of whiskey. But exactly what you're talking about is the kind of experimentation that we see in Texas, whether it's malt whiskeys, rye whiskeys, bourbons, blends. You said you're doing your own grain whiskeys and trying things out. Like all of these different global styles of whiskey have, for one reason or another, landed in Texas and turned into something different, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a neat place to make whiskey, just because, we've all talked about it, the climate and the humidity and temperature that we have here. But besides that, it allows us to just, experiment and make new things and be creative in an industry. And I can't appreciate that enough, because of the climate and humidity, we don't get instant results, but we get to play around a little bit more and see what works in the areas that we're at. And so very fortunate to be in a place that allows us to do that.
Yeah. So you get to experiment and see results in 2 years rather than 4 to 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, let's. There was one question. I think I might have mixed it around by talking about the Boo Rye, but it's not 4 whiskeys batched. It is a reverse mash bill, correct?
It is going to be. It is going to be whiskeys batched.
Oh,
it's
it is.
going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, these are going to be vatted whiskeys. So each one of these whiskeys is distilled, fermented, brewed, fermented, distilled, and aged separately, and then vatted together in a ratio. I will let you know that yes, the corn grain whiskey will probably be the most prevalent in this. So reverse bourbon might not be. I'm not a.
So
it's going to be damn good whiskey.
Is vatted similar to mingle?
It's part of that whole. It's exactly, Sarah. Thank you. It's part of that whole mingle. I like to use the word mingle because it's not blending. It's mingling flavors to complement each other and that work well with each other. It's chemistry, it's cooking, it's a lot of different things, but the all around goal is to balance everything. So whether that be the grain whiskey that has a lot of corn or rye or wheat, it's all about balance.
Yeah. Well, as
I agree, John.
As John says, we trust you, Davin. So
yeah.
And Davin, we John. Keep making amazing stuff. We are on 71, and we're going to finish on that single barrel 71, which is just beautiful.
Which I thought I was smelling almond, and then I went back to the double barrel.
Yeah.
And that smelled more like almond, so I don't know what I'm smelling.
It just is damn good.
It's good.
Thank you.
I just don't know what it's smelling.
But Davin, thank you for all you're doing. Why don't you kind of finish off by telling people how they can support you guys, especially as tap rooms and everything are closed. What can people do to get bottles, support your operation, and keep you guys going?
Yeah. So what we're doing is in these times right now, what we're doing is we're actually doing a curbside pickup. You can order anytime that you want. If you go to realalebrewing.com, there's going to be a link to I believe it's realalebrewing.square.site, but that'll take you over to an online shopping center that will allow you to buy all of our beers, all of our new beers, our Mysterium Verum, you can even purchase crowlers of beers straight from the brewery.
Cool.
And it's we have pickups for Fridays and Saturdays. So if you order tonight, you can actually pick up tomorrow. But you can order anytime that you want. Just check it out. And we're still out there at all of your other retailers that are doing curbside pickups, Specs, Total Wine, and all of the other Class Bs that are out there. So
nice. Well, we're going to finish off with the video that we showed at the beginning. Davin, thank you so much.
Off of this.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Yes.
We'll look forward to getting that back out there on the Blanco hat trick and come and see.
Absolutely.
I wanted to mention one other thing. I forgot to mention. We're doing Hump Day happy hours every Wednesday at 5:00. I'll be hosting. We'll be talking with different bars and restaurants from around the Texas area, and making cocktails and just the usual BS.
Perfect.
It'll be fun. So check us out there too.
Yeah. So enjoy your whiskeys with Davin. Enjoy your happy hours. Wednesdays, where can they find that?
It's Wednesdays at. It's going to be on our Real Ale Facebook.
Okay.
You can check out past episodes on our Real Ale Brewing Company Facebook as of right now. So
follow them on Facebook and follow Real Spirits Distilling on Instagram as well.
Yes,
please do.
All right.
Cheers.
Well, thank you all. Cheers to you. Cheers to your health.
Cheers.
Stay safe and stay healthy. And we'll see you on the other side. Take care.